Good evening and welcome to the January 6th meeting of the Falmouth Conservation Commission. A couple things before we get started. Electronic devices or cell phones, if you please silence them, we'd really appreciate that. If you're here to discuss or to speak on any of the applications, we just ask that you go to the podium, give your name for the record. And we encourage you to do so. Like I say, just go to the podium and give your name for the record. Okay, so first up tonight, we have a request for continuance under a notice of intent.
What's that?
Bruce and
No, I got
Susan Sheridan, 141 Shorewood Drive, East Falmouth, Mass., with permission to construct and maintain a 4-foot by 255-foot pier consisting of prefabricated aluminum gangways, a 3-foot by 20-foot and 8 by 12-foot float system, install 14 10-inch vinyl coated pilings and associated clearing, excavating, and landscaping. Jen?
Yeah, I have those. Yes, the applicant is requesting a continuance until February 3rd.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, so we got a motion and a second to continue to February 3rd. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. Abstentions, unanimous, so moved. Next up is Courtney Bird, 43 Sipawissa Road, West Falmouth, Mass., for permission to remove 3 landscape walls and replace with modular concrete block walls within the same footprint and height and associated clearing, excavating, grading, and landscaping.
Mr. Chair, I'm recusing myself.
Okay, Courtney, thank you.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, the applicant is requesting a continuance until February 3rd. You don't have to sit in the corner, Mr. Bird.
A second.
Okay, so I got a motion by Mike, a second by Betsy, to continue to February 3rd. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. Abstentions, unanimous, so moved. All right, next up is a request for a continuance under an amended notice of intent. Mary Alice Carroll, 23 Zell Street, East Falmouth, Mass., requested to amend the existing order of conditions, DEP 25-4138, to remove the existing driveway, relocate and reconfigure new driveway, shift the house footprint, grade modifications, and changes to egress stairs. Joan?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, the applicant is requesting a continuance till February 3rd.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, so we got a motion by Maury, second by Jamie. We'll call for the vote to continue to February 3rd, correct? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. Abstentions, unanimous, so moved.
I'm recusing myself for the next two.
Okay. Okay, so Maury is recusing herself for the next 2. Okay.
February 3rd.
Correct. All right, request for determination of applicability. Robert Kreshmar, 2 Burgess Street, West Falmouth, Mass., for permission to pump and remove the existing cesspools and to install a denitrification system consisting of a black water tank, gray water tank, leach field, and the associated excavating, grading, and landscaping. Jen?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, the staff has reviewed the project, and we are recommending a -2 under the state and the bylaw with the resource area boundaries now confirmed.
So moved.
Second.
I got Courtney and I got Mike. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. Abstentions, unanimous, so moved. Next up is Ann Schmaltz, 125 Old Dock Road, West Falmouth, Mass., for permission to install a denitrification system consisting of a black water tank and the associated excavating, grading, and landscaping. Jen?
Again, Mr. Chairman, the staff has reviewed the project. We're recommending a -2 under the state and the bylaw with the resource area boundaries not confirmed.
So moved.
Second. I got Courtney on the motion and Jamie on the second. Any other discussion from the commission? Public comment? I'm sorry I didn't call on the second one. I mean the first one. Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. Abstentions, unanimous, so moved. Continued request for determination of applicability. Richard and, I guess it's Verla O'Hare, O'Hara, 190 Edgewater Drive East, East Falmouth, Mass. For permission to pump, fill, and abandon the existing cesspools and install a new Title V sewage disposal system. Jen?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we are recommending a -2 under the bylaw and -3 under the state with the resource area boundaries not confirmed.
So move.
Second.
Okay. We've got Courtney on the motion, Mike on the second. Questions or comments from the commission? Questions or comments from the public? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Abstentions, unanimous, so moved. Warren and Jesse Broberg, 302 Edgewater Drive East, East Falmouth, Mass. For permission to pump, fill, and abandon the existing cesspools and install a new Title V sewage disposal system. Jen?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, the applicant is withdrawing their application at this time.
So moved.
Second.
Okay,
We don't have to vote, do we? We don't?
No.
Oh, okay, sorry.
all right.
We're not going to let him.
Good.
Chairman,
Yes, Mr. DeVos.
can I address the issue before this? Not Goldberg, but O'Hara.
Wait,
I assume you,
Please.
I assume it's passed. Is that what we,
you're talking, Wayne, you're talking about 190 Edgewater Drive East?
Yes.
Yes, it's a -2 under the bylaw, and -3 under the state, with the issues that you discussed with Mark earlier.
okay.
Yep, you're all
That's-
set.
That I didn't hear. Thank you.
Yep, nope, you're all set.
Okay, request for a hearing of a notice of intent. All hearings of the Falmouth Conservation Commission are held simultaneously under the authority of the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act and the Falmouth Wetlands Bylaw. Although a single decision of the commission is issued, it represents a separate decision under each authority. And first up tonight is Bruce and Suzanne Sheridan, 141 Shorewood Drive. That's been continued. Correct? Okay. So second will be Patricia and Brian Fitzsimmons, 381 Shorewood Drive, East Falmouth, Mass. For permission to demolish the existing breezeway, construct and maintain a house addition and the associated clearing, excavating, grading, and landscaping. Jen?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I will hold any comments or questions until after the applicant's presentation.
Good evening, Raul.
Good evening. For the record, Raul Bisali from Holmes & McGrath. We're the engineers and land surveyors for the applicant, the Fitzsimons family. The project at 381 Shorewood Drive, East Falmouth, is along the eastern shorelines of Great Pond. The proposed project is to replace the existing breezeway that currently connects the existing garage to the main house. The breezeway is open on two sides of the breezeway, but is connected on the opposite side by the garage and the main house. The resources on or within 100 feet of this project are land under the ocean, which is Great Pond. There's a salt marsh, BVW, coastal bank, and land subject to coastal storm flowage. The site alteration reduces impervious surfaces in the buffer zone A, but increases the impervious surfaces in buffer zone B. The net increase is 113 square feet. There's a proposed mitigation planting along the back side of the property that follows the existing edge of the BVW and salt marsh. What's colored in a dark green on the graphic here. This will allow for the area behind it, which is currently mowed, but it's a salt marsh, to restore itself and become more of a marshland without being disturbed. The proposed mitigation is for 55 square feet, which is more than the 2-to-1 requirement of the 113 square feet that's proposed. There's also a proposed tree, a cedar tree that's proposed on this corner, in addition to the mitigation. If there's any questions, I'll be happy to answer.
Jen?
I don't have any questions.
Courtney?
No question.
Kristen?
I'm almost set. Thank you.
Maureen, you all set? Mike?
No question.
Betsy?
No question.
Jamie?
Thanks for the tree. I'm good.
Okay. What's your pleasure?
I make a motion to close the hearing, take it under advisement.
Second.
Okay, motion by Maureen, close the hearing, take it under advisement, second by Betsy. Comments or questions from the commission?
I have a comment.
Sure.
Should they all be this easy?
Just too compelling, Raul.
Comments or questions from the public? Okay, hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. Abstentions, unanimous, so moved. Thank you, Raul. Okay, next one up is Courtney Brewer, which is continued. Now we're moving on to David and Valerie Pacillo, 64 Karen Jane Ave, East Falmouth, Mass, for permission to construct 2 additions, replace the existing in-ground swimming pool and pool patio, reconfigure the driveway, install a new Title V sewage disposal system, utilities, leaching pit, dry wells, retaining walls to replace the existing Rosa rugosa and replace with native species 10-foot width and associated clearing, excavating, grading, and landscaping. Jen?
I'll save any of my comments until after the applicant's presentation.
Hello again, Raul.
Good evening. For the record, Raul Lizardi from Homes and McGrath, representing the applicant as their engineer and land surveyor. With us tonight also is Maria Hickey. She has the proposed restoration and mitigation planting presented to you. The proposed project at 64 Karen Jane Avenue is to propose 2 additions to the existing dwelling and reconstruct a new pool, remove the existing one, redesign the driveway, add drainage systems, upgrade the cesspool that's servicing the existing dwelling with a Title V septic system, and all the grading and planting associated with this project. There is a decrease in impervious surfaces in buffer zone A for this project, and similar to the previous one, there is an increase in impervious surfaces in buffer zone B. The net increase is about 261 square feet. We are proposing 522 square feet of mitigation planting. An additional buffer enhancement will provide a native plant buffer to the closest resources on the property. The existing pool is in this location. The reconstructed pool reduces the impervious surfaces closest to the resource, but none of the proposed additions are any closer than existing developments. The septic system, as I mentioned, is going to be upgraded from an existing cesspool to a Title V septic system. There's proposed dry wells for the proposed addition to the garage on the east side of the garage. The proposed front development will grade to a proposed catch basin in the driveway, which is going to be serviced by a proposed leaching pit, which is also going to be used for the pool draining whenever it has to be maintained. All the grading in the front of the property is going to be graded to that proposed catch basin. The existing vast pavement on the site is going to be reduced. Currently, there is an existing wall in this location that's going to be removed that also defines the existing edge of pavement. That's going to be all the way, pulled back all the way to this point. There's a section of pavement that goes all along the northern property line that has to remain due to an easement on the neighborhood for access to the waters of Great Pond. If there's any questions, I'll be happy to answer. Maria is also here to answer any questions regarding the plantings.
Jen?
So Raul, you're not going to be touching that easement area at all?
That's-
That
That
paved
pavement-
easement?
The pavement on the easement is not being removed. At one point, we were removing it, but
Yep.
because of that easement, we had to retract from that project.
Okay. No questions right now, Mr. Chairman.
Jamie?
I'll pass for now.
Betsy?
No questions right now.
That's the one.
Mike?
Stockade fence.
Statement of the obvious that that existing cesspool, which is under the proposed addition, will be filled in, moved?
As part of the construction, I anticipate that it's going to collapse during the excavation for the foundation.
Okay.
So it will be removed and
Very
not
good.
just fill in place. I have a feeling it has to be removed.
My only, it's a comment, if you stand, I was there at low tide, that concrete retaining wall is being undermined as it goes along. Somebody's going to be coming back at some point.
There is already an application that was submitted this morning for a new notice of intent to deal with the,
Perfect,
You're going to hear it on the 27th. You're going to hear it on the 27th.
perfect.
So you're gonna coordinate, obviously, you're gonna do this, I always had the same concern, and the plantings will be done after you do the retaining.
That's correct.
Okay. The only question I had, it says the rose rugosa is gonna be removed with native species. Jen, are you okay with whatever they've planned for native species?
Yep.
Okay, because I didn't see what they said they were gonna plant with, but, and then one more thing. You have a limit of work, through the middle of the Rosa rugosa bed, it's gonna obviously be replanted, so maybe 2 limits of work will be required, one on the top of the retaining wall, so when you're doing the planting, and one that's actually for the construction, which could maybe be tighter to the construction.
actually, the limit of work is following the edge of the Rosa rugosa. When the Rosa rugosa is removed, the new buffer is going to be wider than what's currently existing by rugosa rows. So it's not that it's in the middle of the rugosa, it's at the edge of the rugosa.
Right, now, but it's, when you plant, you're just gonna move it back.
Right.
Okay. So maybe we could put the wattle on the top of the retaining wall also, because that, if you're gonna be disturbing that area between the water and the wattle you have now. Do you know what I'm saying?
This area is the work for the wall, which will eventually be through this board, will take place before the removal of the rugosa.
And you might have a lip there, so you won't have runoff.
So all that may be already disturbed during that work. So the
Okay.
wattles on the top of the wall, we believe, serve no purpose.
Okay,
But we can have a condition that a construction for the main construction of the property have a limit of work closer to that construction.
yeah, I would think right along the, not too far off the top of the coastal bank,
We can agree to a
because
condition,
otherwise.
we can agree to a condition like that.
Okay, thank you.
What's that, Maureen?
All set.
Kristen?
No, that answered my question, is bringing that back when you do the second construction. Bringing the limit of work back when you do the second construction, so that was it.
Go on.
When you do the pool construction?
Yes.
Yeah,
that there's
so
some
shift
more-
it back.
Yeah.
Yep.
Jen, anything else?
No, only one question. Maria, would the applicant be willing to use a mix of species, not just the Virginia rose, but maybe Virginia rose and bayberry Virginia rose and beach plum, something like that, along with the perennials, just to give it a little bit more diversity along that wall?
Sure.
Okay.
Maria Hickey Landscapes. The reason that I was putting the Rosa virginiana in is because I was going to plant it in a denser formation, and the root system of the Rosa virginiana runs horizontal. So I primarily wanted to use that to hold, that bank tight in place against the wall. But I could mix in, beach plum.
Yeah, something, just to
Okay.
give it a little bit more diversity.
You got it.
That would be great. I understand the reasoning for doing it, but I know that some of the members like a little bit, a few more species.
You got it.
That's it.
All right. So we're actually improving upon that coastal area
Move.
by putting nicer things. I think we'd all agree that Rosa rugosa doesn't have a lot of value.
I move that we close the hearing and take it under advisement.
A motion by Betsy to close the hearing, take it under advisement. Second, somebody? Oh, Jamie just seconded. He beat you to it. All right, questions or comments from the commission?
I just had one more
Anyone?
question.
Anyone?
Sure.
Seed, what's the septic design for, how many bedroom? I'm probably looking right at it.
It's,
3, thank you, I found it. I was looking for it on the septic sheet, it's on the main sheet, thank you.
No increase in bedrooms, correct?
Okay, anything else? Courtney, good, Kristen, Jen?
One last question. Raul, how are they renovating the house? They're not taking it down to the foundation and rebuilding it, are they?
Not to the foundation, but the section of the existing garage is gonna be
No, I see.
demolished
Yeah,
to
that-
access the pool. The house
Well,
that
what
exists
are you
today will be
renovating?
remodeled, and then additional work is gonna be
How remodeled, how?
interiorly.
Interior design only? Okay.
Because the existing garage becomes living space, the addition is also living space, so
Yep.
all this is gonna be renovated. The connection to the new garage is gonna be renovated, so
Yep,
internally,
okay,
it's
okay.
gonna be a lot of work.
All right, yep.
Okay, we good? We good here?
So
Any-
there won't be any increase in flow then, it's just still gonna be 3-bedroom, okay.
3 bedrooms.
Comments from the public? Okay, hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. Abstentions, unanimous, so moved. Draw a roll. Yeah. Moving right along.
I'm gonna go buy Powerball tickets, man.
Okay, next, continued request for hearing under notice of intent. Andrew Zimmerman, 392 Twisted Ave, Woods Hole, Mass. For permission to clear invasive plants, preserve existing native plants, restore maritime shrub and maritime oak holly plant communities on coastal bank and resource area buffers and associated excavating, grading, and landscaping. And everybody's on the point, yeah.
Good evening, Katrine Higgins from Wilkinson Ecological Design. During the last hearing, the commission requested several revisions and clarifications on our restoration plan, so we've provided you with a revised plan. And I'll just go through some of the main changes that we made based on your comments. First, and probably the biggest change is the commission requested us to reevaluate the shrub layer proposed. And so we actually went out and visited the property, which was helpful with all the leaves down now to really see exactly what's going on there, particularly along the coastal bank. And you'll see on our plan, we've identified a couple of different clusters of existing native vegetation. They're primarily arrowwood. So you'll see how our plan has kind of worked around those existing native vegetation, because obviously we wouldn't impact that's currently growing there. We also have called out the existing native tree canopy. There's currently 10 trees on the bank, one of them being serviceberry, so it's 9 trees plus a serviceberry, depending on how you look at serviceberry, growing along the bank, and then 15 trees growing in the upland area. So 25 trees total. So regarding our shrub, changes to our shrub planting scheme, you'll see that we've reevaluated the number of shrubs. We're now proposing 10 additional shrubs. And in addition to the number of shrubs, we looked at the species to try to get some more biomass growing on the coastal bank as was requested. So rather than in our previous plan, we were proposing 58 low bush blueberry, we're now proposing a lot less, about 20 less low bush blueberry. And we've replaced the low bush blueberry with more chokeberry, more Carolina rose, and a bayberry. We still kept some low bush blueberry because they have a really high value in terms of habitat. Small wildlife like turtles really need low bush blueberry because it's one of the few fruits that they can grab because they're somewhat short. And so that's the revisions we made to the shrub layer. And then the second revision we made is regarding the seating area, the proposed seating area. And you'll see our note kind of clarifies our thinking there. Through discussions with David Martin and also a further evaluation on the site, we noticed that there's a large amount of native granite existing on the site, a natural native granite. And so we're just requesting to reuse some of this existing native stone as a way to really delineate that seating area and really define the actual seating area. And then all the other area within the seating area would be all just planted with native grass. So there wouldn't be a tremendous amount of actual stone, but we're just asking for a certain amount of the native existing stuff that's currently on the site to just really delineate that seating area. And then the third change is regarding the existing landscape tie steps that we've asked to replace with stone steps in kind, and we just clarified that all that work would be done by hand. So those were, I believe, the three big discussion points that came up in the last hearing. So with those changes, our proposal aims to complete invasive removal and native plant restoration on about 13,000 square feet of this property, virtually most of what's in jurisdiction, and it's providing a 100-foot buffer for the resource area, naturalizing that area. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any further questions.
Jen?
Just a question or comment. So the stone seating area, you're just taking the existing stone and kind of burying it and making like a slab kind of out of the native?
That's what we're asking.
Okay.
Exactly.
And you added the 19 chokeberry, which thank you for that.
Yep, sure.
You added more sweet fern. There was a defender of sweet fern here last time, don't worry.
Okay.
There was somebody in the audience
Sweet fern's going right
here
there.
to defend sweet fern, so it was comical at the end, so. But other than that, I appreciate the changes made in the landscape plan, and I'm fine with the stone actually in that seating area.
Betsy?
Looks great. It'll be nice, nice.
Jamie?
I just had a note about, creating a swale or something for erosion control.
Oh, coming off the lawn.
David was actually going to address that.
Remember if that was?
Yeah.
I think I said something and you said that it wouldn't work.
For the record, David Martin here on behalf of the applicant. Yes, we did have the discussion, Betsy, you're absolutely correct. I think you did ask that I sort of think about the drainage problem at the site at the last hearing, and I guess I can report to you that we're presently under construction with runoff control beyond your jurisdiction around with the redevelopment of the house that's going on. And excuse me, I anticipate we're going to probably intercept and recharge 60% of the water flowing down that site. So while it's not part of what's before you tonight, the redevelopment of that property will result in a huge improvement. Does that speak to your concern?
I think your argument also was that with replanting, when all this stuff is established, it's going to be anything that might come down is going to be absorbed by the vegetation that's there.
To whatever extent the vegetation can absorb it. There's very difficult soils at this site, compacted glacial till. Our drainage structures are, one the other day was down 23 feet. So anything we would do would have to go to that depth. It's clearly impractical.
Well, I think that was your argument for not having a swale. You could have a
Right.
swale, but it's
To
going
fill
to
up with
fill up
water
and
and
just
it
spill
would
right
just
over.
We have ponding all over the site right now while it's under construction. You basically wait till it evaporates.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dave. Mike?
I defer, the civil engineer defers to. Thanks.
Laura?
I'm very pleased with the improvements on the planting. I still have a little heartburn when we keep using, Roundup and herbicides, but I think we're gonna have to at some point address that. We've kind of, the pendulum is swung the other way. It used to be none was allowed, and then it slowly has crept in, and I know it's accepted in a lot of places, but I think it is a concern for a lot of people, including myself. That said, the other question I did have, and it might be actually for Dave, was the water line already installed to the dock? I think I already asked that, but if I...
No?
Did you see a water line? Because I don't
No.
know how to answer your question.
No, I just want, only because of the soils there, again, you know, that'll be I'm sure it's a seasonal, so it won't be deep, but just that it's, when that is put in, that it's somehow maybe waddles along just until the planting is all done.
I'm going to recommend we put out the water lines. Forgive me for not being, water lines, but now that I know about it, I'm going to recommend we put it in along the edge of the steps, concurrent with the steps being installed. That way you can't take that cement to the water line, do all that work in that one area that's already disturbed, stabilize it appropriately.
Perfect. Thank you. That's all.
Kristen?
Well, it looks great. Like I had said the last time, the 3-year, what you were saying, the herbicides for 3 years, it just seems like there could be a better way to do it, but, you know, I know it needs to be done at some point, but maybe some hand pulling
Yeah, we
later.
definitely, we have, we're very cautious with the use of herbicide, and we know we're very aware, all of our crew and myself included, we're all certified by the state, and we do, it's the last resort we use. If we can pull out like a shrub honeysuckle mechanically, we'll do that before we do use herbicides. And hand pulling, for sure, in the second and third years, that's what our focus is to hand pull things instead.
Okay, appreciate that. Thank you. That's it.
Courtney?
No question.
Mario? Mario, you're going to have to go to the podium, if you don't mind. Yeah, so we get you on the record here.
Maybe move the mic.
Can you hand me a mic?
Yeah, there we go.
Still getting my legs under me. Mario Di Gregorio, last I heard, I'm still on the Conservation Commission. Hickey and Associates described all of the replacement plants for the Rosa rugosa as being native. Only about 50% of them are native. And I don't know how strongly the board feels about it, but if they're calling out...
Mario, are we back, are we on Karen Jane Lane, or are we on,
I'm sorry?
which project are we talking about here?
Wilkinson's doing the current project, Mario.
Yeah,
Right on the
that was,
wall.
I think,
Karen Jane Lane.
yeah, okay, that was the
Well-
one we've closed, yeah, yeah.
We're on 392 Quistit. It's okay. I said we're on 392 Quistit.
Can we tweak the planting plans so all of them are in fact native?
For which project?
For Karen,
The
For
one we
Karen Jane or
Karen
for
Jane.
392?
Karen Jane.
Okay. Yeah, okay. Yeah,
Following native perennials. And there's quite a few that are not native.
yeah, well, I'll take care of that, Mario. Not a problem.
I still have all this on that, so.
Okay, I move we close this hearing, take it under advisement.
Okay, I got a motion from Betsy and a second by Jamie. Any other discussion from the commission? Questions or comments from the public? Hearing none, I'm going to call for a vote to close. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. Abstentions, unanimous, so moved.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Dave.
Thank you.
Okay, next up is Pamela Gabberty, 15 J Road, North Falmouth, Mass. For permission to construct a 4-bedroom, single-family house with attached garage and porch to install a new Title V sewage disposal system, driveway, dry wells, utilities, and associated excavating, grading, and landscaping. Jen, on J Road, comments?
J Road? I'll save any of my comments until after Mike's presentation.
Good evening, Mike.
Mr. Chairman, good evening, members of the commission. My name is Michael Porcelli from Falmouth Engineering, and I represent the applicant. This is a continued hearing. At the first hearing, we talked about several things, and there were some suggested changes to us to consider. There was a question about the coastal bank delineation. So we continued the hearing, made some plan revisions, met with your staff, and did some adjustments to some of the information on the plans. We submitted 12 new revised plans in a letter that outlined the changes. So I'll just go through the changes. They're relatively straightforward, and then I'll show you the plan and be happy to answer questions. So first off, we looked at the top of coastal bank delineation a little closer with Mark Haspersick and made an adjustment to the delineation that concurred with Mark's opinion on that. In fact, I can show you on the plan. I have both versions. The initial plan showed it coming this direction further and then bending over. This version shows it go further this direction before it bends over. And that did have an impact on some of the setback requirements in the regulations. More on that in a minute. So after we revised the top of bank delineation, of course, we had to readjust the A and B zones from that coastal bank. There were some questions about significant trees. We went out to the site and surveyed and show on the plan the significant trees, or trees that I think you were wanting shown on the plan. Obviously, the whole site is forested, but we did show some significant trees. In fact, there's a 20-inch oak over here that had been on the other side of the limit of work, so we adjusted the limit of work and put a note that 20-inch tree is to remain. There are some trees that adjacent to the house that we'd like to remove. The yard, if you will, is extremely limited due to the Rivers Act regulations, and also realize that the entire A zone is left intact, as it must be. Otherwise, you wouldn't approve the project. We also looked at the vernal pool boundary a little bit with Mark and made some shifts in the actual edge of the vernal pool boundary, and then that 100-foot no disturbance zone from that was adjusted. So these changes to the plans made it so that we couldn't meet the 50-foot no disturbance zone A from the coastal bank. So we had to think about how to conform to the regulations. So I've got the old and the new, the original, and it's slightly different. If you look at it, basically what we did is we mirrored the house. We flip-flopped it, so this is the new one. So we flip-flopped the house and the driveway. So the garage is on the other side of the house and the driveway is on the other side of the house, further away from the vernal pool. And that allowed us to, just because of the geometry, shift a little bit further away from the top of the bank. And there's a different setback from a garage slab to a septic system than a full cellar wall, so we could shift the house closer to the septic system. So doing a mirror image of the house allowed us to make these changes so that we could meet the 50-foot no disturbance zone. We're also providing a minimum of 10 feet from the limit of work in all areas where it's close to the limit of work. That's your policy. And we're also proposing a single rail fence right along the limit of work to act as a permanent boundary or demarcation of where you can alter to. There was a question about the AC units and their location. One of the things we were able to do that we hadn't considered on the first layout was by doing that flip-flop, we actually were able to show a small deck on this end of the house. There's no real way to have a deck that made sense on the other version. So we show a small deck. And the house is elevated sufficiently so the AC units would be tucked underneath the deck. So I think that sums it up. And I'm happy to take questions.
Jen?
Yes, Mike, thank you for working with Mark and looking at that bank more closely. That was our number one concern. Other than that, I have no questions.
Courtney?
No questions.
Kristen?
Well, I just wonder, you delineated the trees now, right? That from the other plan, but now with the deck, there's a whole section of oak that are being taken out. That's new from the previous plan?
I don't think they were shown on the other plan is
Okay.
what, oh, yeah.
They were gonna get taken
Yeah,
out
they
on
weren't
the previous
shown.
plan.
They weren't shown, but, so we showed them, and then we're hoping we can take them out because they're overhanging the deck in the house, and it would interfere with, there's very limited yard, so we were hopeful that you'd allow us to take those out. We don't
Some of
have,
them would have been, had to take out with the other house anyway, so,
Right.
Probably all of them.
yeah. I mean, at least that 16 and 10-inch oak were gonna have to be removed. Yeah, most of them would have had to be removed with the old house anyway. So now we just have them on the plan that we know they're coming out,
so we're able to save the 20-inch diameter one.
which is good.
Incredible piece of property. I don't see that there's anywhere else you can put mitigation planting though for those trees, or?
Not really. I mean, everything's so this is all forested. I suppose we could plant a couple trees over here, but I don't know how much added value that would be, given the fact that it's completely wooded all around.
What is this?
No further questions for me.
Okay. Maureen?
Thank you, Mike. The trees being on the plan made a big difference, and I think the project is a big improvement in the first one you presented. Thank you for the extra effort.
Thank you.
Mike?
No, I like it. It's an improvement. Thank you.
Betsy?
I like it when we challenge you and you have to think a little bit differently and you flip-flop the house and move the driveway
What's
further
this?
away.
And you have to
My
work.
outer band.
Yeah, we try to. It's good for you, Mike.
Take me through my bases, yeah.
That's it, Betsy.
Yeah.
Jamie?
I'm good, looks good.
Mike, what's the first floor elevation of the house?
So, Kristen, you want me to?
I didn't show it on
pur-
purposely, but
Yeah,
it's
that's
elevation
anywhere.
23.
Okay.
It'll be about 2 feet
The
above the
only
ground.
place would be
That's- I
like
just
over
wanted to
here,
put on
and
plan.
then you got your septic.
Thank you.
Okay.
I move we close this hearing and take it
Second.
So we have a motion from Betsy and a second from Maury. For the human program advisement. Any other questions or comments from the commission? Okay. Questions or comments from the public? Maury? Okay. Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. Abstentions, unanimous, so moved. Thank you, Mike.
Mr. Chairman, I have to go talk to FCT real quick, but you can start the next one. I mean, like 2 seconds.
No problem. All right, Penzance Point Nominee Trust, care of William Marino, trustee, 153 Penzance Road, Woods Hole, Mass. For permission to relocate and elevate the existing house out of the velocity zone, reconfigure the driveway, hardscape changes including a patio, stairways, install storm water drainage improvements, maintain irrigation system, restoration plantings, implementation of invasive plant species removal, native plantings, land management plan, and the associated clearing, excavating, grading, and landscaping. Jen?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'll save any of my comments or questions until after the board's presentation. I get one this time? No, thank you. I thought you forgot about me the last time.
Do I get an extra for the?
You need an extra one for the file, Raoul. Thank you. Right, I need an elastic. No, I have one now, cool. I'll switch this for an elastic.
Good evening. For the record, Raul Lizardi from Homes and McGrath, representing the applicant as their engineer and land surveyor. With us tonight is also a group of professionals as part of the team. Leslie Fields from the Woods Hole Group, Trinh Higgins from Wilkinson Ecological, and Dan Celine from Horishi and Celine. There's been a great effort from the owners of this property to gather a team of professionals to propose this application and present it before you. So all four of us will have a piece of the presentation before you. The resources on or within 100 feet of this project and this property are land under the ocean, land subject to coastal storm flowage, land under a water body, a BVW, an isolated wetland, salt marsh, coastal banks, coastal dune, and coastal beach. The main scope of this project is to relocate the existing dwelling, elevate it, and redesign the site to improve the placement of the dwelling in relation to coastal storm flowage, flood hazards, and wetland setbacks. The existing dwelling is located in the velocity zone and in close proximity to the BVW and the pond on the rear of the property. The existing dwelling is approximately 21 feet from the BVW and 25 feet from the pond, and it's 123 feet from the salt marsh across the road. The existing patio is approximately 5 feet from the BVW and approximately 10 feet from the pond on the backyard. The patio also defines the top of the coastal bank, so there is no setback currently from the patio to the coastal bank. The existing house finished floor is at elevation 6.8 in a velocity zone with flood waters of elevation 18. The relocation of the dwelling is to leave the existing main portion of the house above this floodplain and outside of the FEMA velocity zone. We're shifting the house forward towards Penson's Road to get it outside of the velocity zone, still within an A zone, also complying with the setbacks to the existing septic system that has already variances from the Board of Health that's located to the south of the property. The proposed finished floor for the house will be elevation 17. That's an increase of over 10 feet from the existing finished floor to raise it above the flood hazard waters. The relocation increases the setbacks to all the resources on the back of the property. It does reduce the setbacks to the resources across Penson's Road and the isolated wetland in the front of the yard of the property. But it's not any closer than the 21 feet currently existing to the back of the house to the BVW. There's going to be a new garage constructed adjacent to the relocated house. The existing garage will be demolished. The existing patio will be demolished, and there will be a new patio to the back of the relocated house. The main portion of the house will be lifted while they construct the new foundation for the house, and then the additions will be added to it. There will be a new driveway. The new driveway closest to the isolated wetland will be relocated further away from that isolated wetland. There's no net increase in impervious surfaces after the project is complete. Approximately 274 square feet of buffer zone, of impervious areas in buffer zone A will be shifted to buffer zone B. In addition to site improvements in relation to coastal flood hazards, there's some additional improvements. The septic tank is going to be replaced with a new tank at higher elevations, so the inverts will provide greater separation to the groundwater. There's proposed stormwater management for runoff from the proposed house and also runoff from the driveway. There's an invasive plant removal program and restoration plan. There will be an additional presentation for that. The application is also presenting a revised FEMA floodplain application before the state and the federal emergency program to revise the flood zone based on the specific conditions on the site. Once we get approval of that revisions to the flood lines, there will be no portion of the structures that will be within the velocity zone. For more information, for a presentation on the FEMA flood zone revisions, I'll have Leslie Fields from the Woods Hole Group make her presentation.
Hello, Leslie Fields with Woods Hole Group. So as Raul said, Woods Hole Group was brought in to evaluate the effective FEMA 2014 flood insurance rate maps for this area. Since the purpose of the project is to reduce risks to flooding, we thought it was really important to make sure that we understood what those flooding risks were. So that's one of the reasons why we wanted to look at the FEMA maps to evaluate their accuracy. So I'm going to start off by just describing a little bit about what FEMA did. And I don't know if you guys have this figure from your packets, but it's a figure that we presented in our report, and we also submitted it to FEMA. It shows you the transect locations that FEMA looked at when they did their study. So for all of Penzance Point, FEMA had 2 transects that they modeled, and they used the results of the modeling to map Penzance Point. One transect was about 1,800 feet to the north on the Buzzards Bay side. The other transect was in downtown Woods Hole. So results from those 2 transects, FEMA took and used to map the rest of Penzance Point. So that's really difficult because it doesn't take into account changes in shoreline orientation, shoreline type, wave exposure. So as those things vary, then the flood zones also vary in the base flood elevations as well. So what Woods Hole Group did was we established 2 new transects right across the subject property. So one of them coming from Buzzards Bay, right across the pond, and right on across, right through where the house is, across the road. And then another one coming from Great Harbor across the road. So one from west to east, the other from east to west. We populated those transects with detailed topographic information that was surveyed by Holmes and McGrath, and we looked at each aspect of FEMA's flood study. So we did just the same thing that FEMA does, we just had new transect locations. We looked at all the input parameters that FEMA uses, so 100-year still water elevations, input wave conditions, wave setup, dune erosion, delineation of a primary frontal dune, overland wave transformation, wave run-up, and all that feeds into producing the maps. So we ran the models at these 2 transects, and we ended up getting some different flood zone mapping than what FEMA got. All right, so I'll try to describe what we did. We had one transect coming from Buzzards Bay over here, and another one from Great Harbor in this direction here. What FEMA had was a velocity zone with an 18-foot BFE out here in Buzzards Bay, and extended all the way across the pond up to this blue line right here. So velocity zone 18, and then landward of that, they had an A16 in here, and then an AE17 out that direction, all the way to the Great Harbor. So again, a VE18, an AE16, and an AE17. So when we redid the modeling, we also found a VE18 out here. Then on the back side of the dune, right in this area, we have a VE16 across the pond. And then we ended up with an AE15 that goes all the way over to Great Harbor. So those were the differences in the mapping. We filed a letter of map revision application to FEMA, which is, you've been provided with a copy of it, signed by Eladio at Town Hall. asking FEMA to make the changes to the maps. That application, we've talked with FEMA, they've received it, we've talked to them about and answered some questions they have. They are satisfied with the information we submitted, and they are currently reviewing it, and we expect them to make a decision in the next couple of months. So that's basically it. I wanted to just finish though by saying that this project here, this is a good project. These people are lifting the house, they're removing it from the resource. This is something that the commission should look favorably upon. You know, that they're trying to reduce flood risks to the property. So in my mind, it's a really good project.
Good evening, Katrine Higgins from Wilkinson Ecological Design. Just to reiterate what Leslie was just saying, I'll be discussing the restoration, the proposed restoration for the property. Our proposal focuses roughly on 20,000 square feet of this property, which is just about a half acre in size. And we're proposing invasive and non-native plant removal and native plant restoration, all in an effort to provide more meaningful habitat for wildlife. With a project area that is the size of a half an acre, that is adjacent to a half an acre sized pond, this is a tremendous opportunity for restoration on a large tract of degraded land in a very ecologically sensitive area. So from our early stages of design, when we were out analyzing and assessing the existing conditions, we started looking at the project area in really three distinct sections. First, you have, along the northern property line, a woodland, which is containing an isolated wetland. Part of it is upland, and then it kind of flows down into the wetland area. Currently, that's highly invaded with knotweed in particular. There's also European spindle tree, shrub honeysuckle, black locust, to name a few of the invasives growing in that area. There are some natives also. There's hibiscus, clethra, and sassafras. So that's more of the woodland, upland area. And then as you move along to more seaward, you come across that pond, that open water body, which is surrounded by a lot of highly invasive plants, Phragmites, purple loosestrife, yellow iris, and gray willow. And there is some native vegetation still existing there, trying to compete with things like the Phragmites. There's arrowwood and a hibiscus and cattail, to name a few. But it's the Phragmites in particular that's notable for its impact on that pond. Phragmites is known to change nutrient cycling, alter wetland hydrology, and change shoreline elevation. And I know over the years the applicant has noticed all of these things happening to this sensitive pond area. And then as you move even more seaward from the pond, you come across the barrier beach area, which in the entire project area that we're discussing, that's probably the most, or definitely the most intact native plant community existing on the property. Primarily beach grass and beach pea are dominating that area, with some bittersweet, black pine, and locust kind of creeping in. So we're proposing to remove all the non-natives and invasive plants mechanically with low-impact machinery where feasible, but by hand for most of the area because it is so sensitive along the water, so just to reduce the impact. And all native vegetation would be preserved, and then we're proposing to replant the area. And really those three distinct areas that I mentioned in the existing conditions, that really comes into play here because we were really cognizant of planting the right plants based on the plant communities that are trying to exist on the site. And so all our restoration plan, you can really see how our plants it's based on plant communities identified by NHESP, Natural Heritage. We used their guidelines for these different plant communities that should be in this area or could be in this area. So that woodland area, we're proposing, as our restoration plan shows, plants that are consistent with a maritime woodland, primarily in the upland areas, primarily shrubs and trees like bayberry, highbush blueberry, cedar, chokeberry, rose. and red maple. And then as you get closer to the wetland, we're obviously proposing plants that are more tolerant of wetter conditions, things like clethra, winterberry, and tupelo. In total in that area, we're proposing to plant 17 trees, and that's replacing the 12 non-native and native trees that are proposed for removal for the entire project. So that comes down, we're proposing 17 trees and 12 are going to be impacted by construction, so that's more than a one-to-one replacement for the trees. In addition to that, we're also proposing to transplant 2 trees that we identified are able to be transplanted and that will be impacted by construction. So in total, there'll be 19 additional trees in that area. And then in addition to 185 shrubs and 258 herbaceous plants for that one woodland area. And then regarding the pond area, we're proposing to remove the invasives, the Phragmites and the loosestrife. And really we found in a condition like this that it requires little to no replanting within that wetland area because there's an existing seed bank that has been kind of trying to compete with the Phragmites, not doing so well, but it's still there. And the plants like the cattail and the hibiscus will really flourish once the competition from the loosestrife and the Phragmites is gone. So we're not proposing immediate planting within the pond area, but you'll notice, as you get out farther away from the pond, we're proposing more and more vegetation there. And then the last area, the barrier beach area, we're proposing species for that area indicative of a maritime dune. So it's salt hay, little blue stem beach grass for the herbaceous layer, 1,600 plugs total of those species. And then with clumpings of shrubs such as beach plum and Carolina rose to kind of form some clumping clusters of shrubs within the dune area, which is quite appropriate for that plant community. And on our land management plan, I also have it packed up here, but in our land management plan on pages 4 to 5, we provided a section that really illustrates the transition from the ocean to the coastal dune, where it's primarily dominated by herbaceous layer with some clusters of shrubs, and then you get to the pond, and then as you go from the pond upland, you'll see that our proposal will transition from aquatic plants in the pond to an herbaceous kind of buffer that goes right into shrub layer and trees. And that is, with increasing in elevation, that's where the shrubs and trees will want to be. So this kind of illustrates what sets this project apart, in my opinion. In a lot of our restoration plan proposals and projects we work on, we have the ability to focus on one plant community. But because of the unique conditions on this site, we have the opportunity to propose 3 really unique and really important different plant communities. And you don't get that too often in projects. So we found this opportunity to propose 3 unique and appropriate plant communities on this one site to be really exciting. And so just to kind of summarize our proposal, we're proposing Phragmites and loosestrife removal on 7,900 square feet of the property, an invasive plant management and replanting on 12,300 square feet. In total, we're proposing 17 trees, 236 shrubs, 1,858 herbaceous plants, and then countless grasses. And this is all in an effort to provide meaningful habitat for wildlife, to strengthen the buffer to the resource area, and improve stormwater function on the site. Thanks.
I'm Dan Celine, landscape architect with Horiuchi Soli. My role in the project has been to work closely with Homes of Grath in the context of information provided by Leslie to situate the house and to design the improvements that would be made in conjunction with the house. So I guess I thought I'd use my time, before you to help you, understand, maybe at a little higher level, how we've approached, that part of the project. Just for orientation, the existing house, and patio are sketched out here in red. Here's the existing patio. There's the house. Here's the existing driveway, right here. That's the outside edge of pavement. Here's the inside edge of pavement. So this is a large island, landscape island between Penzance Road and within the embrace of the driveway. So the house, as Raul described, is being moved back from this location to here. This portion of the house, roughly a square portion, is going to be lifted and relocated on a new foundation, and that would comprise, essentially that component of the new house. This then would be added on as an addition, sort of akin to the wing of the house that exists now. And then the garage with the kitchen above would be added, to the north side of that relocated component. So that's the house. We added the terrace to the west of the house to provide an outdoor, seating area. The grade at the lawn is at the base of the wall is 7.5 feet. The grade of the house, elevation of the house, as Raul mentioned, is 17 feet. So it's roughly a 10-foot grade change between the rear yard and the elevation of the house. So we set the patio at a midpoint, essentially at elevation 12. So there would be about 5-foot descent from the main floor down to the patio, and it would be 4.5 feet above the lawn in the back. So there's a retaining wall that comes off the house foundation at this point, and comes down and around and ends here. Okay, a detail for that retaining wall has been provided in the information submitted. That's a cast-in-place retaining wall that has been thoughtfully developed by a structural engineer who isn't with us tonight here, but his work, I think, is quite detailed. With that wall would be then clad with a stone veneer between the wall and the house would be a wet-laid patio. Okay, so it's a concrete slab with stone pavement as a surface. There are steps that descend in both east and west on the north end of the patio, and on the south, because the grade change rises here, you can walk out on grade. Okay, so those are really the improvements to the west of the house. East of the house, essentially there's the driveway, which is a much smaller loop driveway than the existing. A two-car parking area here. From the driveway, there are some stone masonry steps that ascend to a landing that then abuts the wood porch of the house. Okay. So those are essentially the hardscape features of the project. The softscape, you have, of course, the work that has been described, the coastal restoration or native plant restoration work. There is the lawn, which is the sort of dusty green. The lawn area has been reduced on the project by about 850 square feet. That's as a result of an enhanced or increased width of native plant buffer along the pond. Okay, there's 850 additional square feet of native plants here where there is currently a lawn or patio now. And then, of course, we have ornamental plantings. They haven't been detailed yet, but they're essentially foundation plantings
They're the sort of grass green in close proximity to the house, primarily on the Penzance side and to the south. And there's an existing planting area up by the road. So that's essentially landscape work. The applicant requests continued irrigation of their property. There's an irrigation system now. They'd like to continue to utilize irrigation, although the new system would be certainly upgraded. We'd be using drip irrigation for all the beds. We'd be using rain sensors, automatic controllers, and all the things that we can do to conserve water use. So, be happy to answer any questions you have about the landscape.
So as a recap, I have a few bullets from all four of us. The benefits that we have presented is we move all the structures out of the velocity zone to improve storm damage prevention. Relocate the existing structures further away from the pond and the BVW at the rear of the property to improve wildlife habitat with increased buffer areas. Elevate the existing structure to meet current flood zone standards. No net increase in impervious surfaces within the site, so no required mitigation for this project. Include subsequent invasive species removal and management plan to restore approximately 20,000 square feet of wetland, pond, dune, and buffer areas. Increase natural vegetation by about 800 square feet to the BVW on the back of the house. Add drainage improvements to contain roof runoff and surface runoff. And a net result in decrease in lawn areas by shifting the project forward and increasing buffer areas. If there's any questions, we'll be happy to answer.
Jen?
In concept, I think the project is a good project. I think moving the house away from the wetlands, raising it and shifting it the way it has been, and then incorporating the restoration work is a benefit to this site. That said, the application puts the commission in a little bit of a, commission has to make some determinations. So I have a few questions. One to Raul. You've been before this board for a number of years. We have always asked, and will continue to ask, to have the Falmouth velocity zone placed on the plan. That was not done. I understand your narrative, and you understand the position of this board. We have always asked, we've never agreed with the assessment or the opinion of Holmes and McGrath that it was from human error, and until the regulations change, that line has to be on the plan. The current proposal, although an incredible improvement to what's there, technically does not meet your regulations because the LOMR has not been accepted yet. Had this application been brought before you after the LOMR was accepted, it would be not a problem. So, Leslie, I have just a few questions on the LOMR. When do you expect a decision from FEMA? You said a couple of months. When was it filed? Because I didn't see it. A lot of you signed it, I never saw it, so.
November 2nd was filed.
It was filed November 2nd?
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
We should have an answer from them March, probably late February, March timeframe.
Okay. And, okay. And are you confident with that?
I feel really good about it.
Yeah, okay.
We feel good about the work we do.
No, and I understand that, and I think that, like I said, in concept, I do agree with the proposal and everything. It just, the regs are the regs, and, you know, my job is to keep this board very consistent with their regs. So I guess my question, Dan, I have one question, Leslie. Why did you do the transects east to west and west to east, like across Great Bay?
Well, the transects, FEMA's transects need to be perpendicular to the shoreline.
Okay, that, I was just,
That's why we oriented them the way we
okay.
did.
I was just curious on why you oriented them the way you did, that's
Yeah.
all. I just, out of curiosity, I was looking at it, and I'm like, okay, I just kind of want to know. All right.
And the flooding from Buzzards Bay dominates the whole, all
Yeah.
the way across.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that one I understood. I wasn't really too, I didn't really understand the B transect, that's all.
I can speak a little bit to that 25-foot setback from the velocity zone.
Yep, go ahead.
That's one of the regulations that the Falmouth Conservation Commission has, is 25-foot setback from the velocity zone. I think in this case, because we have the detailed modeling right at the site, I think that we overcome the need for that 25-foot setback. In a lot of cases, as you heard me say, FEMA does the modeling on the transects, and the transects are nowhere near the site. And so, in that case, that 25-foot setback makes a lot of sense. I may be shooting myself in the foot for other projects. Other engineers in the room probably saying, don't say that, Leslie, but, it sort of makes sense in those cases. But in this case, where we have the transects, we have the topography, we have the modeling, we know what the models say at this area. There's no need for the 25-foot setback. We've overcome the need for that at this site.
And that's where I wanted you to go, is present the case that you're overcoming the presumptions and not the need for the 25-foot setback. That said, Raul, I still want to see a 25-foot setback on every plan, and then you overcome the presumptions. And just one other question, Dan, would it be, and I know we've talked about it, and I do think that it's a great improvement to the site, and, if the board is struggling with that and would like to see a LOMR decision first, what is that impact to your project if you do have to wait for that LOMR decision?
What's the difference in the first floor elevation? That's the only question.
First floor elevation, if I'm wrong, is you're putting it's 17, right? 17, and your regulations would have it at 20.
20, yes.
Yeah, so it's a 3-foot difference. And I'm just saying that, the data is there.
Right,
So they've made a strong case to overcome the presumptions. The board just has to work with that. But Dan, what would I'm just out of curiosity.
What would the impact be if?
Like, when did you want to start breaking ground?
I really can't speak to that.
Okay.
And I don't know if that has even exactly been determined.
Okay.
The builder on the project is C.H. Newton Builders.
Okay.
And, that would be really, I think, up to them and the owner to.
Okay, I just didn't know if you had a set time frame or not, and if, that's all. And one question for Wilkinson. I really like the design. I think you guys put a lot of thought and effort into that. I just have a little question on the isolated wetland. Do you think Clethra is going to be okay there?
There is Clethra growing.
There is, okay.
Yeah.
I didn't really look at the too closely in there, so.
And it's doing really well.
Okay, excellent. That's all I needed to know. Thank you. Those are my only comments.
Mike?
On the modeling. And this is much for my education moving forward as it is for this project. The model is a two-dimensional, I take it.
It's a series of models, but they're all
Two-dimensional model. And what I'm saying is it's a
one-dimensional.
vertical.
It's
It's
really a one-dimensional model. Looks at one slice, one transect at a time. So it's really the series of one-dimensional models.
But it gives you a YZ coordinate.
Input to the model is, a distance and an X and a Y, distance and an elevation along that transect.
Okay. For this, there were two transects. They have both perpendicular. What happens at the intersection? You get
We
two
didn't even
results. At the
use-
same point, you get two results.
Two results, and the results from Great Harbor were much lower base flood elevations, so we didn't use them to do the map, and we mapped the whole place using the more
Buzzards Bay.
conservative BFEs from Buzzards Bay, which is what FEMA would want you to do.
Okay, and that makes all the sense. And on a basis of looking at this is, not a good word, but in between the transects, the Topography governs and the lines are fudged between.
I mean, between FEMA's
between-
transects?
Up and down the coast.
Are you asking how FEMA interpolates between
Yeah.
the transects? Yes, they use topography and, you know, extent of development and vegetation and things like that, and they have the photographs underneath, and but there is a bit of, that bit of interpretation or extrapolation from one transect to the next involves a bit of art, driven by science and an understanding of how these things happen. But in our case, we didn't have any art, because we had all the data and the topography.
I did say we were going in two directions at the same time, one addressing the project.
Right.
It makes all the sense. You have the time, money, and interest. But if you're a typical homeowner along the coast, you do have to understand that there was art as well as science depicting that location. So the exact elevated location of that, what we use as a boundary, is subject to some interpretation.
Well, the location is I think it's subject to some, there's an error bound on where it is, the location, and...
That's a good way of looking at it. So our current practice of adding some number of feet, is FEMA typically more conservative?
FEMA doesn't require that 25-foot setback.
I'm trying to, I'm using this project, maybe unfairly, but to educate myself and homeowners as to exactly where that goes. There has been a number of times that have said, now that we have much better modeling, much better topography than we ever had, that we should be able to define that our error boundary within the town should be small. Do you have an opinion?
I think the maps were an improvement over the previous maps from the late 1980s. So FEMA's 2014 maps are an improvement over the maps from the 1980s. The models have improved, the data input to the models have gotten better, I would agree with that. I do think that the maps are conservative. So they have, in many areas, they have BFEs that are higher than what... As I found here. And we've been doing, in fact, I've been doing almost exclusively this for the past 2 years. All up and down Massachusetts and Delaware, Florida. So up here in Region 1 in Massachusetts, we've done a lot of this kind of work, and we've been really successful at it.
And your finding is in most instances, FEMA has been conservative.
Pretty conservative.
I have no further questions.
Maureen?
Question, I guess, about the Loma map. And their acceptance of your findings. Can we move forward without that? Without their
If you feel
determination?
that the applicant has overcome the presumption, that's up to the board, yeah.
I'm just, if they come back and they're not gonna accept it, then I just...
That's the
Decision.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can make a condition.
You can make a condition, but then that will delay that delays the project until the Lomer
Well,
comes out.
that's not our fault.
No, and, hey, I'm just letting you know, and that's why I asked Dan what the
If I can
timeframe was.
If I can add one more thing, this project will also require a variance application before the Board of Appeals, because raising of this structure exceeds the 35-foot zoning code. So there's all the process through the town before any groundbreaking.
Okay, so we do
part
have
takes
time
place.
that if the board wants a certain comfort level that the Lomer has been accepted, that's okay.
So we can accept a condition that once the Loma revision is accepted, we issue a copy to the board. And it's one of the conditions that revision has to be approved.
And, yeah, and I mean, like you say, the 35-foot thing might be another fly in the ointment too. I mean, you know, you have a lot of things to overcome before. All right, so that was one. I did really like the Wilkinson plan.
Yeah, that was nice.
It was really nice, and a lot of bad things are gonna be removed there that have been eating up the wetlands. How are you gonna get the machine down? Are you gonna do it along the south side? Because you said you're gonna go down to the dune area, is it gonna be the south?
That would all be hand done.
Okay. So where are you using the
So
Bobcat?
probably just like a dingo along the north side, along the upland.
Okay.
But there's not really good access past like the current house, so it would be hand removal.
Handwork, okay. You have, this is from Raoul, there's a dewatering basin shown. Whereabouts are you gonna put it on the site? I only see a detail, but I didn't see where it was on the site, and it's probably right there, and I'm just not seeing it.
Right, the best area for the watering system is probably on top of the leaching field. Not that it's gonna leach through the leaching field, it's just gonna filter the water and go on to Benson's Point. But that's the only area that's flat enough that they can install a dewatering basin should they need it.
So could you tell me how the water's magically not gonna go into the leach field? It's gonna know to go to Penzance Road?
The soils at this site are very tight soils. What they do with the dewatering basin is just a row of hay bales, filter fabric. They pump into it and the water gets filtered through the fabric. Very little goes into the ground. Most of it just sheet flows through the surface.
Okay. Well, I mean, I wouldn't want somebody to be putting that on my SAS, but that's your fault.
Not
and
in
whatever.
it, it's on the surface.
Well, isn't the leach field underneath the
Right,
the basin?
about 2 feet below surface,
And
right.
it's probably heavy clays there, so you're assuming that it'll.
Right, we did
not-
perk test and it's a slow percolation soil. That's why we can't do much of subsurface drainage.
Right, that was the next question.
We also have very low grades, elevations of 4 and 5, very close to groundwater, so there's not much room to do anything subsurface.
Yeah, there's gonna be very little recharge in those little swale basin, you know.
Right, it is an improvement over existing conditions,
Yeah.
but they are limited.
And how are you gonna maintain those over the years without silt and vegetation and leaves and everything getting in there and them not
Well,
working?
the homeowner will just have to clear any debris that gets collected in them. Most of them are in vegetated areas, so most of the leaves will just decompose themselves and become part of the enhancement to any runoff water.
Okay, well, we'll put that into the conditions. So you're keeping the leach field, but you're changing out the pump chambers. You're putting in 3,000 gallons.
That's correct. The
Okay.
relocation of the house no longer will comply with setbacks to the tanks, so we have to remove the tanks, put a new tank that will comply to setbacks to the house.
And the leach field meets the setback?
The leach field meets the setbacks to the house. It's installed with a variance because it has a variance to the setback to the property line on the south side.
Right.
So there is variances to the SAS.
Because we don't have, there's no detail of the existing septic system.
Right,
And when
'cause-
was it installed? You're gonna get
I
continued
know
anyway?
we did the design, so we do have that information, but I don't have it with me right in front of me.
You're gonna get continued, so maybe that could just be submitted, you know, when the septic system was installed. I'm sure it's not that old, but it would just be nice to know what's there.
You want to know when the septic was installed?
Yeah, and,
Okay.
and where, yeah,
That's something that we can provide without the need of a continuance, because the system is installed and it was located. So that's where it is,
Okay.
and we propose no change to it.
oh, yeah, now look at that.
All right, so the design for the system was 2011.
Okay, very new then.
It was probably installed that same year, because the design was February 2011.
Excellent, that's perfect, thank you very much. So we can have a copy of it. Good job, Dan, good job. Oh.
Can we have that, or do you want me to go make a copy?
Katrina.
Katrina, you want me to make a copy of that, or, okay, thank you very much.
Anything else, Maureen?
Saving the boys.
Nope, that was it so far.
Kristen?
Well, I think it's a beautiful plan with the plantings. It's really nice. Again, I just have to say, 3 years of herbicide when the Wetland Act says not to use them really disturbs me every time. So it's just, I just have to put that out there again. That's it.
We'll change it.
Courtney?
Do you have cross-sections of structurals that show, all this in section?
Which structures?
Your proposed house, do you have architecturals or anything at this point that?
I believe there's architecturals being prepared for the zoning board of appeals, for them to review because the height.
I kind of like, you're raising it essentially 10 feet. Interestingly enough, the owner 10 years ago walked me through that house, and in the hallway at about chest height is a line showing the height of the 1938 Hurricane, which would have been about 5 feet above the floor, which was 7 feet, 7, 5, 12, 13 feet above. It's kind of interesting. So you obviously are taking that into account. But I would like to see how all of this ties together. In other words, I can visualize it here on a map, on your drawings, but I'd like to see it in elevation, like a section through the say the middle of that house on an access north-south.
I think that's a little out of our purview, isn't it?
No, because it gives us a sense.
For that?
I'd like to see a slice right through there that shows the deck and all that stuff, so I can see that clearly. You must have progressed to a point where if you can do this on the ground, you must have it.
I just got word that we do have a cross-section similar to what you're describing. We can submit it
Yeah,
to the town.
I appreciate it.
to the
I know
commission.
I may be, it just makes it easier to visualize that
What's it called, a
part of it.
cross-section?
It'll be a,
I don't need detailed architectural drawings, I need a cross-section of it.
Cross-section?
we can
Yeah, it
submit
shows
it as
elevation.
additional information. It's not gonna change what we're proposing
Would show
on the plan.
Would show the existing grade, the patio, what your foundation is, is this a crawl space, is this a
This
full
is a crawl
foundation?
space. This is a crawl space, not a full foundation.
Okay, so what's the elevation of the top of the crawl space? So on, and take it right out to the front driveway, which I presume you haven't really changed the elevation of the driveway much.
No.
Roughly the same elevation 6 that currently
Yeah,
exists.
okay.
5 and
So-
6s.
So, it shouldn't be that difficult.
We can provide that to the commission, to the Conservation Commission Department.
I'm assuming we're continuing this, or are we closing it?
I don't think you've gotten that far yet, Courtney.
Okay, if the sense of the board is they're comfortable with what they have, and want to close it, then.
You can
I'm
provide
not
the
gonna
cross-section
fall
to
on my
me.
sword on this.
I
but-
believe that the information so far that's being asked can be submitted to the office and without the need of a continuance.
You all set, Gord?
Yep.
You're not done yet, Raul, though.
Raul, do you have any cut and fill calcs?
No.
Well, it looks like you're doing a lot of modification of the topography here. Would you be able to provide those for us?
We can generate a calculation of the cut and fills.
I think this is a little bit to what Courtney is getting at. And to tell you the truth, I would like to know that before we close this hearing.
And we do ask that when
Yeah.
this is
One of the,
There's a lot of topographic change.
well, yes, there is, and that's what I'm getting at, because going back to this 1938 Hurricane picture in the hallway in the center part of the house, is that this was between Buzzards Bay and the harbor, and this was a wash through there in 1938. And so now you elevate this structure, and is that gonna be problematic in a similar model like the 1938 Hurricane? You follow? Leslie, you can address this problem. And it's not that I'm trying to be obstructionist about it, I'm just concerned, what's the implication of where does that water go?
Yeah, the property owner showed me that same blue line, it's like painted like a wave in the dining room.
Yeah,
It is
yeah.
really cool, and it does say 1938, so it was a wash through there. The FEMA maps show it flooding through there.
Yeah.
We still show it flooding through there, even with our maps. There's some high sort of headland areas on either side to the north and south, I guess, roughly.
Yeah, I mean-
Those don't, those are outside the floodplain, but right through here, it's low, and so it floods. We are proposing to elevate the house higher. Basically, what we think, if we were to redo the models with, future topography, I think it would push that velocity zone even further seaward, so. This is different. Wait a minute. So it would push right now we have the velocity zone boundary right here. So this is the velocity zone, and then it's an A zone going that way towards Great Harbor. I think it will push the line further this way because it's going to be shallower. The water depth is going to be shallower. If the wave's coming in this way, the water depth is going to get shallower faster because there's a little bit of fill in there. And so it's going to push that velocity zone further seaward. There's
It's
going
not
to
gonna,
be less of a flood risk.
Well, presumably the it's gonna be on an island, and it's gonna go to the water will go to either side.
No.
I mean,
Some of
that's-
it will go to
that's
either
how-
side,
That's how
yeah.
you have it designed.
Yeah, some of it will go to either side, but the actual structure of the house will be
Will be in
safer.
better, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
What is the floor of the existing house? I'm getting to how your model maps.
Elevation of the first floor?
Yeah,
Existing house?
the existing house.
The existing house is 6.7, 6.8 is the elevation of the existing house.
You have something on here called threshold that says 6.8.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's.
And it's going to elevation 17. And something I would like to point out is, right now the floodwater comes this way. The existing house is here. The existing house is here as an obstruction to the floodwaters, and the water just goes around it. We're proposing it here higher, so when the floodwater comes this way, floodwater will continue to go around it. We're proposing to fill this area which is currently occupied by the existing house. The proposed driveway is going to be at elevation 4, 6s, which is similar to the existing grades on the driveway. They're just going to be pushed forward, and the house will be in this location. The grades on top of the septic system are about the same on elevation 8s. In this section, we are filling to elevation 10 from existing 8s. But the floodwaters will continue to hopefully go around the house and not into the house. There's a proposed crawl space. The elevation, as I understand, for the crawl space is elevation 12. Finished floor is 17. So there's about 5 feet from crawl space to first floor.
You want some, Mike?
I am, again, for educational purposes. We had a severe storm in '38, which produced elevation something 11 at that house, 4 feet above the existing floor. And we're predicting a storm that's 6 feet higher than that.
Well,
I'm
we
not-
have
I'm-
no idea what's gonna happen.
Well, we're making judgments up and down the
Yes, we
coast,
are.
and I'm just saying that's what it is. It's valuable information from my perspective.
The BFE that we have predicted at 15 is a combination of storm surge during a 100-year event and waves. So it's not, that's not still water flooding. Still water flooding in this side, according to FEMA, and we agreed is 12. So 12.1 coming from Buzzards Bay. So that's just still water flooding, and then there's set up on top of that
set
are
on top
waves.
of that.
Yeah.
But it's, if you have a home on the coast, there is good reason to be cautious.
Absolutely, absolutely.
This is not, there is both art and science, but it's best judgment as we have.
Yes.
What's that?
I'm done.
Betsy?
So I want to get back to you came before us because or you, let's see, let me change that. You went to Leslie because you have a house that's already almost at the maximum height.
Over the maximum height because they have to get a special permit from zoning,
Well, I mean,
correct?
is it already over the maximum height?
The existing house or the proposed house?
The existing is not.
The existing house is not.
No, the
The
proposed house,
is gonna be bigger.
correct?
Well, because it's
Oh.
gonna be raised.
Gets elevated high.
10 more feet.
Well, I know it gets elevated.
It's
Ten
not.
more, but I thought that isn't where they do the elevation is from where you go into the front of the house?
Yeah, the ridge is 36 feet.
It's
an
an
average.
average.
The town takes it
An
from the
average,
road.
we-
Be from the road.
Would be from the road?
Well,
Guys,
from the roadside.
Yeah, it's the average height.
how do they measure the height for zoning purposes? Is it from
The
grade?
average- The average elevation along the front on the structure
Yeah,
to the ridge.
yeah, that's
Okay.
it's along the
Right, but it's
structure.
based, explain the base elevation that it comes from, because that's where it all starts. You're talking about altering that, correct?
Right, so the altered elevations are not used for that calculation. It is before any of this work happens, the average grade as it exists today.
Oh, okay.
That's the same grade that's used for existing house and proposed house.
Okay, so if you're.
That
to go up
prevents
10
you from
feet, you're-
artificially raising the lot to get a higher.
So the ridge gets higher by whatever that 10.5 foot is. Therefore, we're gonna exceed the 35 foot.
But your ridge is already at 36. 36.16.
That's an elevation
Elevation 36, I'm sorry. So,
from finished grades of 6
32,
and
30,
5s.
but you have to use the existing base,
Okay, so,
hence you're going for,
so that's
So
why,
they-
47.
that's why you had to go and change get it out of the velocity zone. But where the velocity zone, you'd have to be up to 20 feet.
Correct.
If it's up to 20 feet, as you elevate the house
First
you
floor
have now,
elevation. raises
it's
the
gonna
ridge.
raise the, okay.
That's why it has to get a
Right,
variance.
part of the work here is we're trying to limit how much we have to elevate it. So we're taking it out of the velocity zone, we still fall within an A zone. But then we comply with the flood zones of an A zone and not with the flood zone regulations of a B zone.
Okay, and my other question then is directly related to that. Do you have to have flow-through panels because it's an A zone? Where you're,
Because it's in a flood zone, yeah.
because it's in a flood zone?
The crawl space will
Right.
allow the flood waters to go through.
Okay. That's all I have. Thank you.
Jamie?
I think it's a good project, I like it.
All right. What's your pleasure?
I think
Well, do you guys want the cut and fill calcs and the cross-section, or are you okay with that?
I want them, but I don't need it to make a decision.
I mean, you administratively could.
Can you provide me the cut and fill calcs, a cross-section? This list is getting long,
I
you know
know.
I don't like this. And, Raul, a new plan with the Falmouth fee zone on it until that Loma is accepted.
And he's gonna give you that new plan before.
And you will
before we
continue
vote
to
on it.
provide that Falmouth fee zone line. I don't care if your employer disagrees with me or not.
Can I make a recommendation? I have no problem with the project, actually. I mean,
It's a
I
good
think it's an
project.
improvement to what's there. And whatever happens with ZBA has nothing to do with us, so I'm not gonna worry about ZBA. I am worried about the Loma report being filed with us and its determination of how this works. Obviously, they still have ZBA to go to, so I don't know why I personally would rather see a continuance and for next week or the 2 weeks or whatever, so you can get this information, because most applicants, when we get over like one or two things that, and it's, you know, we should be more consistent, that when usually it's cut and fill calcs, it's like it's a continuance right away, because we want the cut and fill. So I just think we've already said like 3 things that we needed. It's not really going to impact, which is, again, is not our problem, it impacts the time frame of what they're doing with whatever. But I just think it keeps it easier for the board, easier for staff, we get the information, we might go, oh my gosh, when they say it's, 500 cubic yards of fill.
You convinced us, Maureen. Would you like to ask for a continuance?
And I'm not trying to wreck the project, I mean, I think it's gonna go,
It's a good
once we get all the
project, yeah.
information, I mean, you know how it goes, if we get everything we need, then it goes. And I'm just gonna make a motion to continue it, to receive that information.
It's gonna have to be February 3rd.
I have to agree with Maury on this. I think we're asking for enough information. It's not just, a minor alteration or two.
We're not asking you to redo the plan and readjust and do, it's just basically information that we usually would require anyway. Luckily, she pulled off the septic thing right away, but there were still a couple other things.
Well, when do you go to the ZBA?
I don't think the attorney has a date set,
Okay, so,
but the application is not being done through Homes and McGrath. The attorney is doing that application.
So they haven't submitted it to ZBA?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't have a date.
Okay, so February 3rd would be that, and Leslie, there's no chance you'll have that loaner by February 3rd?
If I do, I'll
Submit it to us.
Yes.
It sounds to me like it's
I mean, you'll have a continuous to February 3rd. Give us all the information. If the board's comfortable at that time, and we still don't have the loamer, it'll be conditioned that before the Conservation Commission signs off on the building permit, I don't care how many times somebody wants plan review, until, we will not sign that building permit so they can get to plan review until I have that loamer. Is everybody comfortable with that?
It sounds to me it's just like
Okay.
Raoul who has to come back.
I request a continuance to
To February 3rd. Good choice, Raul.
At the request of the applicant, we'll continue this till February 3rd.
okay, motion by Maury, second by Betsy. Any other comments or questions from the commission? Comments or questions from the public? Maury, are you good? Okay, hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. Abstention, unanimous, so moved.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That was an exciting project.
Not as smooth as your first two, Raoul, but
Okay, the next up is 23 Zell Street.
That was
has been
continued
continued.
to February 3rd.
Okay.
Oh, Mark finally texted me back.
All right, request to extend the existing order of conditions. 5 Foster Road, McGann, DEP number is 25-3535. Jen?
Yes, this is the dune replacement and beach maintenance projects along Foster Road, so the staff recommends a one-year extension.
Have they started the work?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, so why don't we just haven't finished? Second.
Okay,
If
motion by
they
Betsy,
continue their-
second by Maury, agreeing
The
a one-year
beach maintenance
extension.
and everything.
Comments or questions from the commission?
Just one question, didn't we have, were they supposed to, I remember these a long, they were quite a while ago.
They submit annual
do.
monitoring
Okay, that's all I
reports,
wanna know.
absolutely, Woods Hole Group does.
Okay, perfect. I'm happy.
That's why those files are so thick over there.
Sepsis.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Questions or comments from the public? Okay, hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Abstention, unanimous, so moved. 11 Foster Road, Falmouth, Mass. That looks like Clement. DEP number is 25-3537.
Same
moved.
project.
Second.
Betsy, Maury on the motion in a second. Questions, comments from the commission? Hearing none. Questions, comments from the public? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. Abstentions, unanimous, so moved.
Don't even think of adjourning yet.
I know. Knew you were gonna say that.
Okay. What's your pleasure? I think I was originally not going to be here on Wednesday. I am going to be here next Wednesday. So do you want your meeting, because we don't have a meeting scheduled for next Wednesday, and we don't have a meeting scheduled for the following week, so we do have to have a meeting to vote the orders that were closed. What's your pleasure? It can't be Tuesday, so it's gonna have to be Monday or Wednesday.
Wednesday morning.
Wednesday morning.
Yep, fine with me.
Kristen, you're giving me that look that Mary always gives me about a morning meeting.
As long as we have a quorum.
I know I can make it. 7 in the morning?
I'll definitely be
Wednesday
here.
morning? Yeah.
Wednesday morning. So I've got Courtney, Maury, Mike, Russ, Betsy, and Jamie. Kristen, you are off the hook again.
Oh, good.
All right, so we're gonna do, what was that,
6:15?
Wednesday morning?
6:15.
No, not 6:15.
5.
No, let's go with you want 7 or 7:30? Which one's gonna work for Jamie? 7? Oh, God. All right, 7 a.m., you got it, we'll post it.
You're always so cheerful then.
Yeah, it's great, yeah,
All right, I make a
okay.
motion to
We're on
adjourn.
camera.
Second.
We have a motion to adjourn and a second by a motion by Maury and a second by Betsy. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. Abstentions, unanimous, so moved. We're adjourned.